that. This is my new way of starting streams now, because at least when I hit the clapping, when I hear it back on playback, because I sometimes have to make sure that there's no breathing, like me going, is it live yet? That's how I'm doing things now, people, okay? Hello, everyone. Welcome to another political recap stream here on the Moisky Live channel. I raised my arms. I'm a fucking pleb. Joining me, as always, to discuss the goings-on for the last 2 weeks, although I'll be honest with you, only one thing's really happened, although I do believe there was a State of the Union some point, maybe, kind of. I don't know, actually. It was alluded to in the news. It was alluded to, and that's about it. But joining me to discuss these things, maybe even touch on the State of the Union, I don't know, it's up to him, really, is my scrumptious co-host, TrupsLP. Say hello, Trups.
Hello, Trups.
How is Trups?
I'm doing quite all right. You know, we are fashionably late to the topic as always.
Oh well, it was you know what it is? Russia knew you were going away, so they decided,
yeah, right.
Swag fam, let's go. Now they can't cover it and get the views out of it, right? That's how it goes, right?
Yeah, right. Well, you know, it was either that or, you know, I didn't get, you know, the email to the Russian bot network that I'm apparently a part of. You know,
of course.
So that really screwed us up. Fucking mailing lists, you know how they get all messed up.
At least, I mean, we can joke about it and say, if they had the decency, they'd at least let us milk the views out of it. But in reality, it's just sod's law, Murphy's law for the Americans. It's just, it's just unfortunate. Well, not unfortunate. It should never happen to begin with. That's the unfortunate part. Not that we've not covered it when it happened. Of course not.
That's making light of a bad situation.
Incredibly bad. Yes.
Unfortunately, the best way to actually make, you know, actually like get through tragedy, humor is often used as a method to do so.
It's my go-to.
Yeah, it's a preferred method in my opinion.
I like to crack jokes when things don't go well, and then people try and seem more depressed, and I'm like,
"It's Trump's Blade." No, but I do like that movie.
Which one?
I assume, well, at least the first one.
I mean, first two I would accept. Second one's absolute banger. Third one, no. Yeah. The second one, I was a lot when it came out. I was quite young. That creeped me out for a little bit. With the chin separating. That was cool. Very cool.
Yeah. True.
So, as many of you will undoubtedly know, the past 2 weeks have been very much one-sided. But the fact it hasn't ended is quite interesting, I find. The fact that it hasn't been steamrolled, the fact that Ukraine is still standing, to me, is... And we can all say, credit should go to all the countries that have united against Russia. No, credit goes to Ukraine first. Always, primarily them. And to every country that has stepped up and taken in refugees, legitimate refugees, as opposed to the economic migrants we've been putting up with for a few years now that have been bled through Turkey. This is vastly different. And to watch how governments have united, but to also see which governments are backing Vladimir Putin is quite interesting. For example, you have those that are claiming to not take a side, and I mean I get that. I fully understand. I do actually have a source for that, by the way, somewhere. I have to go find it. Ukraine related. It might be one of these two, where you've got maps of countries that are very much on the side of, a side of we're not in favour of this at all. This is wrong. You have some that are neutral, allegedly. You have others that are saying this is all the fault of like NATO. You have some that are saying it's all the fault of the West because, and then if you look at them, you realise it's because they're poorer than the West. Like for example, Venezuela, or North Korea, or Pakistan, which is intriguing. That's an interesting one.
I sense a trend. Yeah,
I'm sensing a trend too. But it's interesting to see, yes, while there should be credit given to those, of course, who might want it for their their absolute way of dealing with it, there have been some alarm bells raised by others who pointed out that any government that could do what they're now doing is worrying. And, I mean, yes, there is a worry there, but I do think a context is important to acknowledge.
Right.
Who is doing this and why they're doing it? And there are many different
Mhm.
motivators that I find are quite concerning and alarming, because this man has been elected to office 4 times.
Elected with quotes.
Yes, please do the quotations with your index middle on both hands
Mhm.
when you say freaking laser as well. If you have ever
Well,
seen Austin Powers.
one of the most interesting things, at least talking about the coverage, right, is I have seen what can only be called pro-war propaganda
I've seen some of
from
that.
both sides.
Oh yeah.
It's really shocking, actually.
Hmm.
When it comes to the United States, I have seen plenty of individuals. Not only are they saying outright that we should get involved more. Um, of course, they had conversations about like the no-fly zone. That was a potential option that they were talking about recently. Some people are just saying straight up, we need to, get in there. Um, I mean, we already sent several thousand troops to Poland, that kind of thing.
Hmm.
Um, but it's how people have been talking about it that has gotten me quite interested, confused, kind of like cocking my head at some of the comments. And I don't know, have you guys seen that over there?
I have seen very far left and very far right being very pro this, but I've not seen it covered in any media outlet.
Okay.
I have not.
Now, when you
It's
say
not.
any media outlet, you mean like Daily Mail, BBC, any of those places
They're
just aren't
not. They're not.
covering?
They're not talking about that. They're talking about everything else. Ukraine. They're
Hmm.
focusing on the issue and not on um, the Twitter or the odd. I mean, they're probably. And I'm not saying. Okay, I should rephrase. For all those that I have seen, I have not seen it yet. That's not to say it doesn't
Hmm.
exist in my country. It's just I have not seen it reported like that in my country. And no one in this
Hmm.
country, with the government, especially being the way it is, would have the balls to say that in any journalistic sense.
Right.
It would be career suicide right now as well, because optics. Yeah, no, you'd be ruined, and rightly
Hmm.
so, to be honest. Um,
Well, I think I think a major difference is why your country might be reporting. I'm going to use this term based on your observations. What you said, it might be that you've seen more objective reporting, considering that this being a European issue
yeah,
primarily
hmm
is a lot more close to home, and
yeah.
so people really don't have the time to speculate about what people like want in a fanciful idea kind of a thought process. Does that kind of make sense?
It does, yes.
Okay.
It's very
So
close to home.
because it's closer to home, so it's more important that you get the details and the important facts out versus
I
us
agree.
who.
Yeah, you are right on that. I think the only issues that have arisen have been some delays with the EU, um, and that's not their fault. Their bureaucracy is a bit tricky to navigate. They did do some rather um, nice speeches
Hmm.
condemning, but they did delay because countries like Italy prioritized wanting to make sure trade for high fashion goods was removed from the was it made exempt from certain trade with Russia so they could keep making money, you know? Yet the ruble is absolutely worth less than most of the poorest countries' version of a dollar, you know?
Hmm.
And there were delays because of these silly little, quite frankly, superficial things. Now, I get. Obviously, you want to protect where your money is coming from, and these trade deals are important. Um, but a country that wants to join you in the bloc, because Ukraine want to, and they're well within the right to want to. There's nothing wrong with them wanting to either. Is being annihilated by a megalomaniac who thinks that 14th century borders, and also the country is run by Nazis and gangsters, is valid justification to invade a country, thinking that
Mm.
he could brainwash his troops into believing that they would arrive to fanfare only for them to be met with resistance, to the point where some have had to, instead of to get the citizens to obey, have a soldier walk through them holding 2 grenades in their hands up in the air. to make the people obey. Right.
Now, not gonna say too much regarding that, but that's not, in my opinion, probably not the best way to get people on your side.
I
I'm
think you might
not
have
a
a point.
leader or a military leader or a
We're not
political
experts on
leader.
this channel. We're not here experts on this on diplomacy, nor are we experts on restructuring a nation's belief system.
Right. But based on the last 20 years, right? If somebody's going to come up to you with explosives primed,
mhm.
they probably don't want the best for you. That's from an American standpoint.
That's pretty fair. I mean, I can't imagine thinking any differently.
Hmm. Now, so we've got a lot of interesting situations with how this progressed, because of course we are getting to this late, so we haven't covered this at all on this channel, at least not Meg and I.
Agreed.
So, um, would you like to go back to like how this how we started this whole thing?
Oh god, I'd have to remember. I've got the worst
Ooh,
memory.
that's all right. So, okay, if I remember correctly, it was I believe it was Wednesday or Thursday of the week before I had left, that they started their invasion. They started rolling through, and everyone was mostly shocked in the the news media,
Yeah.
and they were more commenting um, on the missiles being fired, because they did artillery shell from their land and from the basic, like, right inside the border.
Hmm.
They Now this was part of the propaganda part. When that reporting started, targets, the verification of yes destroyed, not destroyed, um, was one of the biggest issues. I remember that week that all I kept hearing was Ukraine has no anti-air.
Hmm.
I don't know if that's true to this day.
So we did, and other nations have sent them anti-aircraft ammunition and, I believe, weapons. So they do.
Okay.
I mean, they were sent some. I know that was the case because it was mentioned in Parliament. It has been mentioned by a number of outlets. I wish I'd archived them. Archive was crashing, so I didn't archive anything and dump it in our server, so I could at least then have a reference. I know that some other Baltic states had indicated they were going to send. I think Estonia was sending some anti-aircraft. Germany pledged 2% of their GDP to create an army, just in case Russia really did push this one.
Hmm.
Because Germany don't have one. Well, they do, but they don't. Um, I know that that when Volodymyr Zelensky, the uh, president of Ukraine, he gave a speech to the EU via obviously satellite link or Zoom, I don't know, in the chamber. He asked to join the EU straight away because then there would be a protection there. Joining them in NATO would protect them. Hell, there were ceasefires and no-fly. I mean, kind of no-fly zones of some kind agreed to allow people to
Hmm.
flee certain war zones. They lasted less than an hour because Russia started bombing them the moment it was agreed upon.
Mm.
That's kind of tactics. Generally, I have this rule. It's called the gentleman's agreement. I abide this quite strictly. If someone and I make an agreement, I don't break it. I shake on it. You say huzzah. You go your ways, and you obey the rules. In this situation, an agreement was made, and Russia said, "Hang on, they've just turned their back. Bomb the crap out of them." So, any idea of a no-fly zone, which I mean that Ukraine have been asking for? Ukraine have been asking NATO to extend the no-fly zone around certain regions where people are trying to flee, and
Hmm.
it's not yielded a result at all, which surprises me a little. I would have thought. I think the only reason they're not doing anything is because if NATO get involved, Putin's already said he's going to escalate this even further.
Oh yeah. Well, the comments from Putin have been scrutinized heavily from
When did he make
from
them?
big. I'm sorry.
When did he even make some of these comments? Because some look like they're out of
So,
time.
mm, so I know that during the initial invasion, he had made this whole speech in his declaration of war, and it was an essay that allegedly he had been writing for quite some time. And they never, like, I don't think they ever showed this outright on television, besides, a couple sound bites. But allegedly that was his declaration of war and what his intentions were. Um, and I know that some of those comments, besides the random interviews that have happened since,
Yeah.
that people have been remarking on, like the if any other Western nations get involved, they will, reap consequences like the which the world has never seen. That was one of the big ones that
Mm.
everyone was freaking out about, because of the implications, of course, of a nuclear power saying "fuck around and find out." Um, but the majority of the comments, I believe, were done from his original speech and then follow-on interviews that happened afterwards, if memory serves. Um, but so after those kinds of comments, I know that the heavy scrutiny came from members of NATO,
Hmm.
the EU. I know that France decided to stand up and pretend they have a big dick.
So
Uh,
Macron had a telephone call. He obviously had a face-to-face at great distance with Putin. The reason why, by the way, it was
mhm.
face-to-face wasn't anything to be. It wasn't meant to represent being so diametrically opposed. It wasn't meant to be so that they were looking powerful. Putin, perhaps. No, it was actually because Putin's afraid of catching COVID. Straight up, that's why he did that. He doesn't want to be anywhere near anyone ever. Shocker. Go figure. A dictator doesn't want to be near people in case they might hurt him. Even the the little soy boy. No offense to Macron, but Macron had a phone call with him earlier this week to try and calm him down, because Putin doesn't want to be put on the naughty step, and also all these sanctions are really actually starting to hurt him, which we'll get to soon, I'm sure. But during that, Macron said his takeaway message from this was, "This is going to get worse, a lot worse, for everyone else in the world, because Putin's not going to. Not only is he not going to back down, he's going to escalate this even further. Hence the threat of nuclear threat."
Mhm.
Um,
Now, it's funny you mentioned the sanctions, because we've seen a couple of different iterations of them. Um, do you wanna quickly touch upon some of the different ones that have been introduced?
Sanctions,
Hmm.
sure. They have been yeeted from SWIFT, which which is a financing. Well, it's actually a middleman, I guess, for financing around the world. It's 50% of their finance economy. That's them out. They've been sanctioned by not being. Their trade has been all but eroded at with majority of countries they're involved with. I
Mhm.
believe that they might lose pipelines that they have with Europe very soon. In fact, if they haven't
I believe
already.
Nord Stream 2 was immediately shut
Yep.
down.
We are in our country seeking to, and they have already in other countries. They've had embassies, journalists all removed. They have had all their sport teams banned from respective sports. Even the Russian soccer team, as you would call them, are no longer allowed to call themselves Russia, play their anthem, or wear their colours. They instead are called the Russian Football Association, I believe, or something like that. And they go out
Mhm.
without an anthem, a national anthem at all. They're not allowed. They are not allowed to compete. I think a lot of accounts are being yeeted off social media. Many have been removed. Creators in Russia from things like OnlyFans and Patreon, which I
I
don't
did
think.
see a lot of stories about that.
I will say this: I don't entirely agree with that. That's not the fault of it. But then this is their government. It's a very strange one because their government, air quote, operates under fear and also an out of touch version of government, which I know is all governments. Thank you for being that person. But in the context of Russia, I've said this so many times. People have done documentaries on this. They're not just out of touch. They don't understand how the people live. Their country is too big and they believe power and control is how you do anything. That's not how
Mhm.
you get things done. And that's the
Well,
problem
not
with.
only that,
Go on.
but there's more to it too.
Yeah.
The dictators who often will seclude themselves from their own advisors, even.
Hmm.
and this is one of the comments that have been made on our radio quite a bit about different leaders who have met with Putin over the course of this situation. They've said that he isn't the cold, calculating, intelligent individual that they remember him being. That something has seriously gone wrong in his head.
Yeah.
And besides the obvious neuroticism of, okay, the whole world is now against me because of a dumb decision that I have made, and a selfish one at that. Um, but you also have the potential of an individual who has fundamentally been, living away from other people, been hiding himself away. Now, kind of looking at the situation, going, I can't trust anybody.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on my own,
Yep.
and that's going to create actual neuroticism to borderline insanity.
Yeah.
But then again, I'm not so sure all of that is true.
So there are things that need to be addressed, I guess, now, and it's actually referenced in the chat by Garrett. Can someone tell me when, in all history, economic sanctions worked to curtail dictators' plans for conquest or of conquest? Now, this is something I do believe. It's not necessarily a pioneering tactic. Of course not. You cut off the supplies. That's what they're doing. It's a very old tactic. You're cutting them off from the rest of the world. It's Cold War 2.0. Simple as that. It's very simple. The economy for Russia is so important. It's important for every country, but Russia is one of the superpowers of this planet. Without it, they cannot function. And by being sanctioned in the way they have, it has harmed the ruble to a level that I can't believe it's reached. It dropped. It's so worthless now. If you've got a ruble, just put it in the bin. Use it as a paperweight, all right? It's not worth anything.
It's on par with how bad Venezuelans' money dropped in the onset of that whole.
That is exactly true. And the thing here is Russia has resources. Russia can't rely on its farmers. Most of it's forest and mountain. Most of it isn't even inhabited. And so it's very tricky for Russia to. I mean, they'll push this because they'll keep doing it. It's bullying straight up. It straight up is bullying what they're doing. But this is a different way of trying to get them to back off by saying, look, because you're not backing off, we're now going to make it so as a consequence, you now are going to have a country whose worth, even for the size of your nation, is worth less than the Federated States of Micronesia. All right, you're not going to have an economy, and if you do, it'll be very insulated and only propped up by other countries that solely blame the West for existing as the West. Even though, I'll be honest, the only reason you don't exist as a country akin to the West is because you hold on to very antiquated ideas that don't keep up with the West. That's the only reason you're left behind, because you haven't introduced a decent education system. And that applies to China too. The only difference really is they have an absolute violation and control on human rights, which are non-existent. The same can be said for Russia, who under previous versions of air quote governments were more than willing to lose tens of millions of people to keep pushing their ideas. Collateral damage for the greater good, right?
That's been their motto for centuries.
It has. And that motto hasn't kept up with the rest of the world. Well, it has, but not in the way you'd think. So thank you again to the inevitable pedantic prick who'll leave that comment. Thank you. This version of warfare, as it were, is pushing Putin further to an extreme. But if he has the balls to pull the trigger, that's a different question. Is it worth taking a country knowing that there'll be nothing left when he's done? Probably. Don't forget here, didn't he attack Georgia? Not your state, country.
Yes.
Right? They're already considered a Boy Scout entrant who are trying to get into the EU. They're now pushing for it. There's another one. I don't know if it's Moldova or someone else who are trying to.
I believe it is Moldova.
They're also now pushing because they also are worried. A Belarusian general who supported Putin has resigned because he genuinely cannot support this in Ukraine. And Moldova have to, by the way, join the EU out of desperation because they're right next to Ukraine anyway. Romania are somewhat safe, but not. Hungary, by the
There's
way,
a lot of mountains there.
Viktor Orban, who leads
Orban,
leads Hungary, he is considered somebody who would have supported Putin up until the moment Putin invaded Ukraine. Come on.
So some have likened Russia's invasion to a dictator crossing an item off a bucket list. How do you think that fits? Or do you think it's just somebody spitballing against the wall kind of thing?
Say it again, please. I was looking up the ruble value for a second.
Oh, it was
In Money Watch,
that
the
the
US and its
invasion,
allies are
all of the things that have been going on, sounds
Mhm.
more like an individual's crossing off an item on a bucket list
Yeah.
than it is an actual attempt at a long-term occupation.
You might have a point there.
Hmm.
Maybe. I'm not sure.
Because if we really want to mention, I mean, I don't know if you've seen, well, I'm sure you have, videos, clips, TikToks, Vine, not Vine, but like YouTube stories, all this stuff. And they're clips of different people in the Ukraine interacting with Russian soldiers who look like they have no fucking idea what's going on.
Yeah.
Like, my favorite is probably the Ukrainian guy driving by a Russian tank that ran out of gas.
A few
And
tanks did that.
asking them, hey, you guys need a tow?
That I like the lady going up behind soldiers and putting sunflower seeds in their pockets
Mm-hmm.
and saying, "When you die, flowers will grow from your body." I like that. Just to quickly
Yeah.
touch on the ruble. Let's see. The ruble fell about 30% against the dollar, making it worth less than 1 US cent. Now, this was to block the banks from SWIFT. That's fine. That's affected more than 11,000 banks and financial institutions around the world. Oh, no, system is used to move billions around 11,000 banks and other financial institutions. The ruble did initially recover ground when Russia's central bank raised its key interest rate. It then dropped another 3%. It's not doing very well. To the point, I think it says here, the ruble is at 104.51. So I think that's 104 rubles and 51 cents, I guess, to $1 US. But I do believe if someone had explained to me at one point at its best, it was like 40 to 1 at some point. So it's still a huge drop. And that,
Right.
I'll be honest, your ruble is worth fuck all, quite frankly. Get good scrub.
Now, what's one of the thought processes that at least was brought up by certain individuals online was that if what they say is true, because I did not look it up, they claim that Bitcoin originated in Russia, forcing a market crash like what would happen in war, massive sell-off of major tech stocks, as well as an increased production of increased buying of precious metals is typical of an increase in Bitcoin as well. Now, Bitcoin has been going up and down. I don't know what it's currently at. I can check my thing, but it was going down pretty hard.
Yeah.
Within the past couple of months. Let me quickly check on that. But if that's the case, and it's possible that Russia is being financed by things like crypto. Let's see how's Bitcoin doing. That would essentially make Bitcoin's gone pretty back up. It's kind of fluctuating pretty heavily. You could actually have their ruble may not be worth anything, but everything else that they interact with might be perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you look at the last week, you have a jump from about 38,000 per Bitcoin all the way up to a top of 44,800 in the past week, and then it dropped off on March 4th, which was Friday. March 3rd, March 4th. So it's possible that individuals decided they wanted to play into stock markets there, and maybe they're trying to hedge their bets on Bitcoin because they don't necessarily need rubles.
So
They can do it in other things.
there was someone who runs one of those cryptocurrency places, marketplaces or vendors, and they've said they're not gonna, they won't be banning Russia or Russian users from accessing or using their platforms, and it's an interesting area. In the UK, we've been dealing with it by essentially naming every oligarch in our country and seizing about half of all their stuff here. I'd say it would be more, but somewhat conveniently, some of the more notable ones have managed to find loopholes to keep some of their resources. Others have suggested if we seize their properties in this country, we can use it for refugees, which I think is a fantastic idea. Either that or knock them down and turn it into, I don't know, some kind of car park, whichever's easiest, quite frankly. Someone said to me when I spoke on PMQs this week, I did a PMQ stream, we're back in the swing of it, and I mentioned, because the Ukraine ambassador was there, it was cringy, but they'd alluded to how much had been seized from oligarchs in this country, and because a lot of them do or have backed Putin in the past. That's the thing. If you've backed Putin, you're getting hurt. And some have said to me in the chat then that this doesn't hurt Putin, though. It kind of does when his allies run out. When all he's left with is himself, then he as a leader cannot really affect change because there's a chance no one will listen to him. And he is somebody that's losing.
There's a major problem with that, though.
There is.
Because, of course, that objectively works in a bubble. But it's the same idea as when you have any kind of massive takeover, right? When you oust the leader, especially in a crisis situation, such as violent revolution, or in this case, war, you open up the possibility that you usher in something worse.
Yeah, that is true.
So while that may be something that we look into now as, oh, that's good because bad guy no longer have money, therefore good, right? It might not work out in the way that we want it to. One of the immediate things that I've noticed, as the media has constantly been demonizing allies of Putin, and as you mentioned, the Russian soccer team, people like that, and basically stripping them of their nationality. Something that Robert Kijek had said in earlier is that the rest of the world hates us.
Yeah,
I have seen quite a few absolutely atrocious things being done to Russian immigrants, Russian foreign exchange students, or just people with a Russian background in other countries. And I want to just put that out there. That's wrong, guys. Just because they're Russian doesn't make them in league with Putin. Just want to make that very fucking clear. Because I can't stand that's the actual bigotry. You know how like people have been talking about for years now, this like the biases against individuals based on nationality, skin tone, etc. This is actually that.
Yeah.
And that's fucked.
It is.
And I mean, I saw there was a Russian store that had a rock thrown through it. I mean, the EA, like the Russian team, was banned from like EA's FIFA, and I'm like, why though? What did they do?
Yeah, no, that thing with boxing athletes, Russian athletes and Belarusian athletes are not allowed to be sanctioned by 3 of the 4 main governing bodies to compete for their titles. I might be 4 now, all 4, but I don't know. I don't. It's a strange one, guilt by association, but at the same time, a lot of them,
Mm.
some have been busted, some have been rumbled as being pro-Russia in the context of this invasion. And it's a tricky one because it's still a case of you're still entitled to that belief. You really are. Others are like, no, fuck you, deplatform, get out of here. If that makes sense.
Yeah, well, that's been a thing that's been happening quite a bit. There are certain people who, if you are critical of the war in certain cases, I've seen people share their suspension notices on Twitter
Mm-hmm.
that they've been suspended for criticizing.
Well, somewhere, I have a little article somewhere that hundreds of accounts are being yeeted off Twitter for partaking in the hashtag "I stand with Putin." In the
I saw
sense,
that.
of they support it, Putin.
Huh.
I found that interesting.
I did see that trending, but I wonder how much of that was like people hearing about it and then trying to get in on the hashtag
Yeah.
by criticizing it.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't necessarily know. Because when I looked at it, I didn't see a single person in that hashtag who was actually for Putin.
Yeah.
They were all just
So
saying that
I
that hashtag was dumb.
courtesy of Sophane, I saw a couple, but then either the accounts went protected or they got yeeted. There was a couple that happened to. But it was a bit of a strange one. I'll give you that because it is not
Like
many.
I'm trying to exercise the same amount of scrutiny as I would give any other news story
Yeah.
with this. Um and it's been rather difficult
Mm-hmm.
because of all of the different kinds of all of the different kinds of news reporting that have been, I mean, conservative and Democrat from all different countries have essentially walked in lockstep with each other on how they
Yeah.
wanted to report this,
Mm-hmm.
except for some opinion people. But those people are opinion people. So, like, that's a little different, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Well, that's an interesting one because
so,
companies like Russia Today, UK government, were asked in PMQs about the Russian government's uh, control over certain media outlets like Russia Today. So they have been reported to Ofcom to then decide whether or not they, as a media outlet, will be allowed to report in this country.
Mhm.
Um, and I think other countries have outright. I think my EU, the EU have already banned Russia Today, and that's really.
Mhm.
I get why. I really do. Again, it's that worrying line of you've just done something that curtails an ability to speak, and that's going to set off so many alarm bells because of power. But in the context of what's
Mhm.
going on, it's so. It doesn't feel like a grey area either. But I want.
Mhm.
I kind of want it to be because it feels complicated to try and explain what's going on and whether it's right or wrong, or whether it can be right or wrong.
Right. Like, this was one of the tweets that I had retweeted, actually. It was from Oliver Darcy at CNN. It said, breaking, RT America is ceasing productions and laying off its staff, according to a memo I have obtained from the production company behind the Russia-backed network. And I remember seeing um, a guy. Oh yeah, here's Ben Rhodes retweeted that from MSNBC. Says good riddance. Um,
Yeah.
um, that's somebody saying now do Fox. Lol. Um, there was one guy that was saying, like, and they should now no longer be allowed to work in any situation in any newsroom in the country ever again. I'm like, hold on a second, hold on, calm down for a second, because you're asking for the mass deplatforming of anybody who has or ever been involved with any Russian state-backed, stuff. Just like people would complain about, let's say, defense contractors who help supply the bombs that drone strike foreign countries, people could say the same thing, that, oh, well, you're part of a state propaganda wing, you're contributing to badness,
Hmm.
and we don't want you to ever work again. I still think that's wrong. I have a big issue with the idea that you're going to take American workers who
Yeah.
work for a Russian backed television station and just blacklist every single one of them.
Hmm.
That bothers me. And I don't know if it's just, the McCarthyism talking through some of these people, or they genuinely believe this. I feel like it might be a little bit of both.
Bit of both. Yeah, I can agree with that.
um, let's see. Slowly does nothing. Russian GDP is already shit. Okay, they're still talking about the economy in there. Um, but I've seen stuff like that where anybody who is in Russia today, they're just getting blacklisted from verified people on Twitter, and I'm just like, guys, this is wrong. You can't just take. I understand what RT was, being Russian backed state media. Of course, they're going to put out the Putin message, but the individuals who work there
Hmm.
are not the people producing the message. They just say it.
Oh
I
yeah,
get that that's also bad, but it's not worth, you know, blackballing them forever.
I tend to
Because what do
agree.
they do? What do they do? They have families. What are they supposed to do? If you
Apparently,
bar them from
do as they're
all
told.
work, like what? You want them to be on government fucking unemployment for the rest of their life? Yeah, great.
It's a very tricky area to navigate, I think, and you are
Yeah.
right with what you say. But I thought I'd just point something out. I had to look into this because I knew that constitutionally, Russia, you could only serve 2 consecutive terms, like in America. Now, obviously, as
Hmm.
we know, Putin took 4 years out and became prime minister of Russia while Medvedev took over.
Hmm.
And then he got 2 more terms. But those terms ran out. So how is he still in office? Well,
Hold on, hold on. I want to quickly address Nerdy's comment.
go on.
But is the Nuremberg defense any defense at all? Yes, because you're not talking about killing Jews.
Although they think they're
You're
fighting a
talking about
Nazi with a Jewish
somebody
leader.
speaking.
It's a strange one.
So
Um,
no, I take the difference between action and words very, very differently.
okay. So Russia have Putin had signed into action this bill, and it essentially means that Putin could, in fact, remain president in Russia until 2036.
Hmm.
He's 69 at the moment. Wait, and
Huh.
I mean, sorry, but the guy's been in power, running the country for more than 2 decades at this point,
Hmm.
and because of what he's done, he would then be able to have served 6 terms if he was able to, just so he could be in power. Um, and that tells you he had to change the constitution to do that. That
Hmm.
tells you I mean, is it really a constitution at this point? No. It shows you what you're dealing with here. This is not someone who obeys his own law. I mean, some people asked, didn't they, like beg for people like Obama to do another term or something? But nobody thought, oh, we'll change the constitution to do it. No, they accept there's a limitation here. Don't fuck around with this stuff.
Hmm.
I just wanted to mention it because it's another one of those things where he is clearly hell bent on retaining power,
Hmm.
and hell, even Medvedev doesn't agree with him on some things, and he stepped down as prime minister, and
Hmm.
Putin, instead of letting him resign, just shoved him somewhere else in front of a Security Council.
Well, I know that when they finally, like, when he got into power, it was definitely shady, and then he retained power for much longer than people expected. Um, I mean, of course, dictator gonna dictate, right?
Obviously.
But I'm more interested in the the instances of when individuals have been involved in Russia, either US, UK, whenever we have gone in and tried to fuck with things, which we do on a daily basis,
Mm-hmm.
um, how we have been able to leave this person completely untouched and completely fine and dandy in his position because we're pretty good at that, fucking up countries. Um,
We all have a good skill for that.
apparently we do. Um, so I kind of wonder how that ended up hanging on as long as it did.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but more based on kind of the comments that I'm seeing in the chat, they're mentioning things like U.S. dependency on oil, and just to quickly give some information on that.
Mm-hmm.
Since Biden got into office, he signed an executive order that reduced our ability to frack for natural gas on federal lands, effectively causing us to go back to before we were energy independent and thus giving us more of an impact, or rather, forcing us to be in trade agreements with Russia and Iran and the other OPEC countries for our energy production. um, Regardless of what happened with the Keystone pipeline, the fracking was one of the major issues that really hung us up when it came to energy export. Um,
Yeah.
so much so that even I'm going to say to this day, but I'm going to reverse that up until I'm going to say last Thursday because that was the last time I heard about it. We are still purchasing tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars worth in oil from Russia
Mm-hmm.
right now.
Really?
We are.
That's a
And
good look.
right now, there's a deal that is trying to be met with Iranians because of allegedly, according to a an oil executive that they had on Fox. Um, Iranian oil is very similar in characteristics, in consistency, in basically its characteristics of oil, as opposed to like how Venezuela has different kinds of oil and their
Yeah,
crude
yeah,
is a
yeah.
little bit.
Yeah.
So apparently, Iran has very similar oil to Russia. So currently, they are trying to negotiate a deal with Iran to buy less from Russia. Here's the thing: Iran's not better for the United States. That's still a country that doesn't like us.
Okay.
So I don't know why we are trying to actually get involved with either of these places when we have the ability, and we proved it during the Trump administration, to be able to be energy independent, in fact export oil and gas to our allies in Europe
Mm-hmm.
with the stroke of a pen. That's the part that really pisses me off,
Understandably so.
because we have the ability.
Yeah.
So, in terms of the energy situation, yeah, that's what's going on. And yeah, no, not 3%. Definitely not 3%.
No?
Um, definitely not. Sith is closer. Um, with the 30 comment.
Okay. How
Um,
about the other Sith comment? We should carpet bomb Iran. And I know what that's about. I know the joke. It's the funniest thing. It's another bloody presidential blunder. Can we just when your president talks about Ukraine and then instead says Iran, and the
mhm.
VP behind him is mouthing Ukraine?
Oh, I
Come
saw
on.
that.
I was so uncomfortable when he said that. Come on.
Oh, and by the way, just to address Beachin real quick, anytime there's something, quote unquote, the oil costs will raise prices just because they can, not because it's actually impacted. It's not oil supply that's being changed, and that's not what the driving factor of oil. It is the ability to transport, refine, and actually produce usable oil. So in this case, whereas we now have a major issue with transporting oil, it's going to cause costs to go up. Also, tariffs and other such taxes that we as other countries impose on the countries that are currently holding all the oil, that will also increase their costs because it costs more for them to import anything into another country. Thus making the unfortunate part about this little thing with what's it called, the sanctions that we were doing, a bit of a double-edged sword,
Mm.
because we are eating some of those costs because we do not produce enough of our own supply. Just saying.
Well, I thought we'd touch on it
Um,
because it amused me nonetheless.
oh yes, absolutely. Now, I guess you could also bring up, now that we've got our poster boy, right, Zielinski. Now, I
Mm.
don't know if you've seen how much has gone on about Zielinski, but I have seen, besides like people literally fawning over him. Of course, the guy's a celebrity, and he's a good-looking guy.
Oh yeah, I
But
mean,
he is a Western darling right now.
he's certainly got some popularity on his side at the moment.
Mm. I mean, people are literally like talking about him being like, oh yes, he's the ideal leader. Look at him and his in like a almost kind of a like a fantasy novel kind of aesthetic. The way they describe him. Um, what are your thoughts?
Um, I don't know much about his policies before because I know I saw a video from, and I will say, as she might have a point, but it was probably the worst time to put it out. It was Tulsi Gabbard talking about the fact that as much as we want to stand with the people of Ukraine, we can't with Zelensky because Zelensky shuts down media in his country. Shut down 3 channels, I believe, that were critical of him. And I don't know
I'm not
enough.
sure, but
I'm not familiar with any of what have been described, so I don't know if it's true or not. And so I can't really offer much comment. All I know is this guy's had assassination attempts on his life 3 times in a week, and he's still going.
mhm,
I know that Elon Musk is using more Starlink stations to help Ukraine. I know that people
mhm.
are really backing this guy because the fact is he hasn't backed down and he's walking the streets. You got athletes coming back to Ukraine to defend their home
I saw
because
that the two boxers.
Vladimir Vitaly, yeah, you got Alexander Usyk, current unified heavyweight champion. You got Lomachenko, who was a
Mhm.
multiple
That's the one
weights
I was thinking
champion.
of.
You've got so many athletes going home to defend their land. You've got Formula One racing pulling out of Russia as well, just because they don't want to be involved. And Formula One is worth a lot of money, not with in
Mhm.
rubles. People are really backing Ukraine, and maybe it doesn't lead to anything with Russia, and they'll keep going. But we can't let a bully win, and we've got to use every other method first, before having to resort to his level. Although, based on what we're seeing, it won't be much of a war. His soldiers are hardly trained.
I don't think that matters much. I'm going to be honest.
No, I know you've got a point to that, but we've seen so far how some of them have reacted when they've been captured. They clearly weren't informed, and
Mhm.
They didn't really. When they were told, they then didn't want to be involved at all. They wanted to go home and be with their families.
I kind of don't blame them because those who
Yeah,
think that they would be available for such things don't necessarily always understand the implications of
yeah.
war,
Mm-hmm.
which is its own kind of problem.
Yeah.
Um, that being said, however, like I kind of I'm kind of more interested in the individuals who are returning back to the Ukraine going, "Hey guys, guess what? we don't have rules of engagement.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go.
To be
And
honest,
that part makes me go, oh, right. There's crazies on our fucking veteran list.
based on what I'm seeing, I mean, rules of engagement were out of the window when Putin started carpet bombing things.
Yeah, true.
Even after agreeing not to.
No, no, absolutely. The rules are completely out the window, but that's why we have guerrilla warfare and we have random citizens in plate carriers running out into the middle of the street with an RPG.
Yep.
Which is, if nothing else, it is mildly amusing because I bet you that guy left after blowing up some APC going, did you see that shit?
Yeah.
That looked awesome.
Oh yeah, it was
Completely not putting two and two together what happened right there.
Yep.
Because that's just how sometimes things happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
But right now you don't really need soldiers in Ukraine right now. Well, that'd be great. They're not operating a whole bunch of stuff. Really what you need is what they have, which is ragtag teams of guys who are going to go around and fuck up some APCs.
Agreed.
One of my favorite videos was a tractor that hitched up to a tank and just started carting it away. Or it was a mobile artillery.
I like that I saw a 3-mile convoy going off to Kyiv. It was going to go there. Oh, we're going to go to war, and I think a lot of it stopped because they ran out of fuel. Well, what you made it look impressive with these tanks, but then you made them go a long distance. What is wrong with you? They did nearly cause a second nuclear meltdown.
Yeah,
that's
that detail.
Right. Yeah. The Chernobyl thing. Why did they take Chernobyl in the first place?
Wasn't just Chernobyl. There was another nuclear station.
Yeah, Chernobyl's kind of derelict. It's not in use. It's covered up and it's not, touched because it's inhospitable. But the nuclear power plant one is a bit of a dangerous one because they were attacking it. Like, hang on, that has nuclear. You're gonna cause an explosion. That even I know you don't mind losing troops. We learnt this from the World Wars when you lost tens of millions and you didn't seem to care. Which didn't surprise anyone because seriously, why would anyone think Russia cared about its own people? Honestly. Russia doesn't give a crap about its own people.
They had more where that came from, was their thought process.
Yeah. Ignore the famine that was killing all the others as well. Doesn't mean anything.
Correct. Apparently. No, but the yeah, I know. I did see that Russia almost started a second nuclear explosion.
Yep.
Well, that's. I feel like I'm kind of a broken record. That's bad.
Like drugs, it's bad. Okay.
Now, I do want to bring something up. Okay, so we know all the terrible things that Russia is doing, right?
Okay.
So we're standing up for people who are being attacked. They are being they're being taken from their homes. They're being killed. When are we sanctioning China for the genocide of the Uyghurs?
Apparently, we're turning the other way for that one, focusing on this issue right now, and we probably won't go with the other one because we don't have apparently we also don't have any definitive proof, and they also have a huge amount of the world's debt.
Well, fun story. If we just make their currency worthless, then they don't have debt anymore.
That is a valid point.
Now, this is part of that precedent thing that you were concerned about earlier that you were mentioning, that now we have a bunch of governments that apparently have a lot more power than we thought. So, if everybody gets together and says, nah, fuck you, we're going to make all your shit worthless.
Kind of glad we
Why do we even care? Why do we even care if we have debt?
Don't know.
If we just get enough people together to say, nah, I don't want to. Like, of course, you need to have people who will sign up for that idea, right? But enough people who said, hey, wouldn't you love to have your debt erased?
Honestly, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of debt owned by China, owned by Saudi princes, I believe, as well. I can understand why people might want to, use that as a bargaining chip. I think it's a big dick move personally, but
it completely is. It absolutely is.
And some people would use it because control.
Hmm.
Ghost of Kiev will save
But
us all. Jeez. I saw a fantastic, I think it might have been Sargon of Akkad on his Instagram, tweeted out an image of a Reddit post saying that
Mhm.
the Ghost of Kiev is some trans pilot, and the response underneath was like, "Can you imagine the dishonor of a Russian being killed by someone who's trans?"
I think so. That was also something that, remember, the Ghost of Kiev legend. For those who don't know, who haven't been inundated with all that shit on their timelines, was allegedly a fighter pilot who, in a single day of the Russian invasion, I believe it was the third day,
hmm
downed 6 out of 7 of the Russian planes that were invading.
Yeah.
Now this is hard to believe for a couple of reasons. First of all, the Russian aircraft went down in 3 separate distinct battlefields in all of Ukraine. So this guy in a MiG 29 would have had to flown would have to have flown to 2 different corners of the country in a single day and down multiple Russian aircraft, and I have a hard time believing that.
Gets the
I
noggin
don't
jogging, doesn't
know.
it?
Now, don't get me wrong. Are there damn good pilots that are out there who are doing God's work out there? Definitely. Are there is there some mystical fighter pilot who is, been playing one too many games of fucking War Thunder? Uh who can down 6 out of the 7 Russian aircraft that had been down? I don't think so. I don't think so.
Oh, right. I
Um,
just want to, so I don't get this wrong, someone might mention it later. Ghost of Kiev is confirmed to be a pansexual transgender woman. Underneath, the thought of a transgender ace knocking out homophobic and transphobic Russian bigots from the sky absolutely warmed my heart. Underneath, as a transgender woman, I respect this comment. Underneath that, imagine Putin's face when he finds out a transgender pilot is killing his best pilot. Lol.
I like Straight Sith Mail saying Germany had a pilot like that in the day. He was called the Red Baron. Yeah, true. Fun story. Back then, guns were a little bit different.
Seriously though, that
um,
pilot was fearless
pilots.
though.
Oh, the Red Baron.
Yeah,
Oh, he was insane. Fucking had a pistol that he would shoot pilots with too.
good boy.
There was a gun on the back, and he also had a gun in his fucking pilot seat that he just went. Ha! Crazy man. Um, but the oh god, where was I going with that?
Uh,
Oh yeah, so the Ghost of Kiev thing. So I have this was one of those weird like propaganda moments that, like, I get like the folklore legend propaganda when it comes to a war kind of situation. It
mm-hmm.
also isn't like it's like an ethereal object, right? It's an obscure abstract idea of, the ghost of Kiev downing Russian aircraft. It's a romanticized version of war, which is plenty. I mean, we've got plenty of stories like that everywhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's just I don't know how much I like the idea of putting out information that people probably know well and good is wrong,
Yeah.
while they're still trying to ascertain the situation on the ground. But then, okay, so if you hear that story, and then you have the Snake Island situation,
Mm-hmm.
which was also apparently bullshit, because those 13 people are apparently alive.
Are they?
Uh,
Oh
Apparently,
yeah, I'd heard about that. I mean, I still think the guys got balls for saying it.
sure, but okay, so again, now we've got a martyrdom story that is being thrown into the mix. And now it was that kind of shit that made me start to wonder, okay, so like when I hear something on the news, is it true? And of course, the answer is no.
Always no.
It's almost always no.
It has to be no.
But okay, so that then leads me to question all the other shit, right? So when like the humiliation stories, one of them was that I just saw recently. Ukrainians that have Russian POWs are asking for their mothers to come pick them up, which I don't know. That sounds hilarious, but they posted the individuals' pictures, so that one might be real.
I kind of like it.
That one might be real. Not sure, but that's a thing. Then you've got this was the one that was like horribly like just so fucking wrong in my opinion. It was the oh god, what was it? It wasn't the people running out of gas. Oh, there was one where the paratroopers landed and they didn't know where they were, so they asked locals for directions. And I'm like, I don't believe you. I straight up do not believe you that some fucking Russian paratrooper was like, I don't know where I'm going. Hey, local, can you tell me which way Kyiv is?
Yeah.
I don't believe you. Like maybe in the 1600s, I would have believed you.
Mm-hmm.
But you mean to tell me that these guys are airdropped in without a fucking cell phone?
I'll be honest.
Or a compass?
It kind of partially doesn't surprise me, but you do also raise a very valid point. Either there's a massive disconnect between their intelligence, or they're just really ill-prepared.
Right. Like, it's possible. It's possible that this happened, or maybe like once in a while this happened.
Yeah.
Right.
Sniffing,
This was the thing that I was trying to say. The part that I'm skeptical about. So the assassination attempt. I don't know if you heard about one of these in particular.
on Zelensky.
Yeah, on Zielinski. It was a bunch of Russian spies that were hanging out. It was like 3 or 4 of them, apparently, that were on the opposite side of the airfield that they had taken, right?
Yeah.
And apparently they had been there for a long time, and they knew that they were there, but they didn't know that they were spies until a Russian that they had captured as a POW said, those guys are spies, and then they told the assassination plot, and that was the whole story, and then they found and killed them. Okay, I'm gonna call bullshit a second here.
It's a little sus.
Right, you telling me that your Russians that came in as spies were just hanging out on the opposite side of the airfield? What? This is for multiple days, right? So they didn't just suicide bomb it. They didn't just lob a grenade. They didn't shoot RPGs, which apparently are being given out to citizens like candy. Right? Like, these items seem to be... Oh, also, not to mention the fact that literally anybody can go get a gun, right? You go to the... They go to the... I don't even know where the fuck they would go, but they gave out like 10,000 guns.
The armory.
Yeah, apparently just the armory. You know, the armory. Go there.
The armory.
Like, because I remember when this first started, they were like, I don't even know where to go. The Ukrainians.
We just go to the armory.
Yeah, it's quiet. Oh, yeah.
Spiffy.
Yeah, it's quiet. A browsing game of fucking shooter Russian.
Pew pew, actually.
But yeah, they just were hanging out there. What was the plan? They were just gonna like hang tight until like somebody was gonna go do a task in electrical and then assassinate Zielinski. What the fuck?
No, mate, it's a nav. It was a nav.
like this is the part. Like when you stop and you really start going out. Like, okay, here's the story. What part sounds weird? Right? You start to ask questions about most everything.
Yeah. I'm with you. I understand. I get you. It is a bit sus. And undoubtedly they will embellish on this. So it's a bit... Problem is, Europe doesn't care that much in favour of hero.
Yeah, I mean, it's a better story for morale because, of course, if let's say Ukraine isn't doing as well as they tell us that they're doing, which I mean, they say that they're tired in our news media, but they don't say that they're demoralized. There was one story they ran about a refugee child who clutched a stuffed tiger in one hand and gravel from her homeland in the other. I was like, oh, shut the fuck up.
That almost made me cringe as much as every politician in Parliament on Wednesday standing up to applaud the Ukrainian ambassador for nearly a whole minute. Now, I fully understood the applause, I really did. But it was so cringe, them all looking up, everyone looking up at this ambassador and just applauding. I'm like, but they're not home, they're in our country. Why are you applauding them?
Yeah, right? It's
too cynical for this.
Like, right, there's a weird theater that's going on, and I don't like it because I want to believe in all the things that they're telling me. I want to believe that Ukraine is effectively beating back the Russians, that individuals are volunteering. There was some 16,000 foreign volunteers that went to Russia. I want to believe that all things are going in the way of my moral and ethical opinions, right?
Yeah.
But when I hear stories reported by news outlets that are full of either embellishments or flat out misinformation, I have a hard time believing anything else they say.
Yeah, no, I get you. I fully get that.
So I mean, you've got right now there's this alleged I'm going to say alleged, but it could be true for all I know. There's like 16,000 international foreign fighters that are going to Ukraine of their own volition to go and fight. Okay. Where do they go?
Don't know.
Where's their muster point? Who do they hook up with? Where's the base of operations? How do they find out this information? Or are they just walking across the border to Poland, going, all right, here I am. Somebody throw me a fucking AK and let's go.
I don't know.
So that's another part of this crazy thing that we're just kind of like going, it sounds accurate to me.
I think the issue is, as much as I and many, and you especially, want to look at this and go, hey, this doesn't really make as much sense. It is, in the grand scheme of it, a bit of a we're poking holes at the wrong. It's the wrong time to poke the holes. If that makes sense.
Yes, but I understand where you're coming from. However, we cannot let a emergency situation, especially for somebody in my position in the United States, we're not there. We have repeatedly had an administration that says we are not going to put boots on the ground.
Yeah.
And yet they are trying to drum. There was a comment from fucking Lindsey Graham that was saying somebody should go and off Putin.
Actually, that was a Hannity, wasn't it?
Yeah. And then he repeated it on Twitter. I'm like, hey, Senator, you mind not fucking calling for the assassination of a leader of another country? Or a person that you're not in a war with? That would kind of be nice.
That was a bit of a, no. Shouldn't have done that.
And a lot of people are like, excuse me, hold on. What are you doing? Please don't. That's bad.
If you get rid of Putin, it's not going to change. It's not going to stop what Putin stands for, because he has a government in his place. One of them will just take his place. Has to be effective change, and the only way you effectively change is by destroying him, not killing him.
Right.
Ruin him. You send him on blast.
Right. You would have to have a full. You would have to have a full changeover of the entire government to actually effect the change that they want, which might happen if the sanctions keep going. But thus, then comes the question that was asked earlier. When have sanctions ever led to stopping a dictator doing dictator things?
Yeah, I should now say for those who might think that I'm just saying, like Sith, you mentioned, don't ask questions, just consume product. That's not what I mean in the slightest. I think it's a pick your battle kind of thing. So I have to. Sometimes I find the best way to fight certain battles is I will watch things unfold before I choose to act. You are while there, and I'm not saying there aren't questions to ask. There are lots of questions. There's a lot of very sus things going on right now. I'm just not sure how to address that without it appearing that I'm perhaps not necessarily being uncritical, but I'm perhaps being considered sympathetic towards something else. And I have to be more careful in this instance because of what I do as a profession. Whereas
Right. If you want to, just tell everybody that it's all me.
Yes, all Trups. It's all
because-
Trups. All Trups.
Yeah, well, to be fair, effectively it was.
Yeah.
Right. I'm the one drawing attention to a lot of this, questioning thing.
At least we don't have to worry about
Because-
YouTube yeeting it.
Yeah, that's true.
Makes a nice
Well,
change.
it depends on who YouTube is most paid by.
Well, I doubt they're going to, in this instance, go for anything that is just asking a few important questions about, what, because some of it is really sus.
Yeah, I know.
But I'm still very
And
proud of Ukraine.
Oh no, I don't want this my criticism of the reporting to be misconstrued as my not supporting the Ukrainians. I want everyone to be perfectly clear. My criticism of the media industry is that they have repeatedly lied or embellished stories with not just about this. We've done it for years, right? For decades, in fact, in order to propagate more war, right? This is just how it's always been. And in some cases, I get it. Like, I mean, if you want to talk about the most the most I guess you would call it propagandized we've ever been was probably any of our wars in the Middle East. They have nuclear weapons. Was definitely the reason why we went into Iraq and nothing else.
Totally. Totally.
Yep, there was nothing else going on there at all.
Nothing at all.
But people still will support that effort, right?
Of course.
And it is in that basis that drives my skepticism of when a media industry drives us towards more pro-war thought processes. I have to ask, what's in it for you?
A reasonable question, to be honest.
But I fully support the Ukrainians doing all their things.
I'm
questioning the logic that we've been giving Ukrainians weapons, but we're technically not in the war yet. I'm kind of wondering how that works.
Providing them with a chance to defend themselves, I kind of get that. Because if they don't have the supplies to defend themselves and they've been invaded, I think they deserve a fair chance to defend themselves. I think ideas been put forward. I know Boris apparently has a 6-point plan he'd like to present at another G7 meeting.
I love it when they come up with that
I know,
stuff.
but I believe he has what he thinks is a winning tactic to push Putin to pull his troops out of Ukraine. And I would love nothing more than for this to be, a viable option and one that would work. Of course, because I want there to be a ceasefire. I want Russia to back off and let Ukraine rebuild its country and for Putin to be dragged into The Hague.
I just want people to live their lives, honestly.
And
I really agree with Sid here.
Annoyingly, this is something Putin doesn't understand because he wants to control your life. And that's not to say that Zelensky doesn't. There are some questions. Of course there are with any person in any office. But a fundamental difference is Ukraine weren't trying to start anything with Russia. Putin just wanted it. And he'd clearly been planning this for some time. Even after much pleading to not do it. He lied and he did it anyway. The man has no morals, he has no values. He just wants to control everyone and everything in the space that he believes is his, for as long as he is alive. And I think it makes it quite interesting. I do hope a solution is found, and if Boris has one, that'd be great. Because I don't think we're going to get one. No offense to you, I don't believe we'll get one from your president.
No, none taken.
Hell, I think your VP was quite interesting recently. I'm gonna dunk on her for a second. This is funny. Question: what's going on in Ukraine? Vice President Harris. Ukraine is a country in Europe. It exists next to another country called Russia. Russia is a bigger country. Russia decided to invade a smaller country called Ukraine. So basically, that's wrong, and that's a fucking quote.
I saw that.
A fucking
I was so
quote.
sad.
Fucking
and she was
quote.
on like somebody's radio show too, doing that, and I was like, oh god.
It sounded like kids giving like a speech at school assignment.
It sounded like a first grader trying to explain like what was going on, like current events. Russia invaded the Ukraine, and that's bad.
Yeah,
thanks, Jimmy.
I mean, if short of the spice up, she said, "Oh, by the way, Russia are playing dodgeball with missiles and the Ukrainians." There you go. That's a
Ukrainians are winning.
Yeah, winning dodgeball, missile dodgeball. Congratulations! For fuck's sake, Harris, what is wrong with you? I thought Biden was bad when he said Iran instead of Ukraine.
Oh,
no, but Harris goes and says, "No, fuck that shit. I want to one up him."
Hold my beer. I got this.
I'm gonna one up that motherfucker in no time.
Oh,
come on! It's a country.
It's a country in Europe.
I might hang on.
Invaded the other way.
Hang on. I actually have the audio of it. I'm gonna play. It's
If you're watching,
it's 30 seconds.
That's fine.
So I'm gonna.
Any level of news, even social media, you're seeing everything that's going on right now in the Ukraine. Break it down in layman's terms for people who don't understand what's going on and how can this directly affect the people of the United States.
So Ukraine is a country in Europe. It exists next to another country called Russia. Russia is a bigger country. Russia is a powerful country. Russia decided to invade a smaller country called Ukraine. So basically that's wrong.
And we're done. Fuck. That's so bad. That clip is terrible.
Oh, absolutely it is. But that's a vice president, guys. She got there. She got to her position because of hard work and her credentials and nothing else.
Even though she was annihilated by Tulsi Gabbard.
Yes, and nothing else.
Nothing.
Her entire political
else.
career has been completely based in totally merit-based promotions.
We love
nothing else.
We here love meritocracy, and to us, Kamala Harris is the avatar of meritocracy. If meritocracy,
yes, she was so good at what she did that somebody saw fit to give her a political.
If meritocracy has the intellectual consistency of someone trying to pick up a fried egg with a fucking ladle, all right. It's really
no. Apparently, she was very good at what she did. Nothing I have said is objectively incorrect. Just I have not specified what it is she did.
Nothing at all.
Somebody clip that, please. Clip that and please send it to me. I'm going to make it a follow notification on Twitch.
Nothing at all.
Yes, good. So it is past 6 now.
Oh yes. Okay. We're gonna have to end this, I'm afraid, people.
Yes.
It's over. I have to go to bed soon because I got work early. Is there anything that Trups would like to promote? Like his Twitch, perhaps?
I've been doing Twitch more. So like if you want to come hang out with me over there, I have very little people who come to see me. There are a few people.
You don't shield your bloody stream properly.
Hey, listen. Wild told me all about it and how shit I am at that. I got it. Okay?
Yeah, because he's been doing it for you.
Here, look. Fuck it, I'll chill it. There it is. It's chilled.
Yeah, go give Trups a follow, please. I really appreciate it. I do apologize for not engaging with you in the chat today. I did see a rather interesting back and forth between two. I'm going to say for the sake of it, I didn't see all of it, so I don't have enough context. I will not take a side. It is not my place to. And I don't want either of you or anyone to feel you are in any way alienated. I want everyone to know that polite discourse is always appreciated here. And I know that it might, go down like a lump of lead. But I know that Trups has managed to push some people away. I have done the same because either I haven't dealt with things or because I let things play out, or Trups because he opens his mouth. But discourse is important. And Trups is a right-wing Nazi, apparently.
Yes, a right-wing Nazi who is also a Zionist.
Correct. Congratulations.
Yes.
As we are done, though, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for smashing the like. 59 likes. I really appreciate that. At the time of ending, that is. Trups is not here this week, so Friday, I believe.
Correct.
So we will stream. I assume the following Friday.
Probably the following. Yeah, the following.
I will have a stream tomorrow here, a research stream, and a PMQs in theory on Wednesday. So there is content that will be up. Well, I say up live. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you on this show anyway in 2 weeks' time. It will be on Spotify tomorrow. So do say goodnight.